What would you do if in a matter of seconds you had to risk your life to save another? This question, so direct and provocative, seems like something out of a movie, but reality has the power to be even more surprising and transformative. In a world where we so often rush through life, preoccupied only with our own problems, stories emerge that break this rhythm and remind us of what truly matters. One of them is that of a simple school janitor, a man who never imagined that his ordinary day would turn into an episode capable of forever marking not only his life, but also the lives of everyone who witnessed what was about to happen. It was a morning like any other. Hallways filled with children's voices, teachers organizing their classrooms, and routine following its normal course. But in an instant, everything changed. The unexpected happened. A fire began to spread, bringing panic, running, and desperation. And it's in these kinds of moments that life's hidden truths are revealed. Those that lie not in speeches, but in split-second decisions. The janitor, often invisible to so many, would become the protagonist of one of the most moving scenes ever seen within those walls. Have you ever been there? Have you ever faced a situation where there was no time to think, only to act? Stay with me until the end, because what you're about to discover may surprise you and even change the way you view the little heroes of everyday life. After all, when we talk about courage, we often imagine great movie characters, but life insists on showing us that true heroes can be those who clean the hallways, fix the forgotten details, and live in anonymity. This janitor wasn't accustomed to applause or recognition. His work was silent, often ignored, but on the day the fire threatened to destroy not just walls, but dreams and lives, he was the only person who heard anything beyond the chaos. A child had been left behind, trapped in a smoke-filled room. The dilemma that presented itself was simple yet brutal: risk his own life or turn away and save himself. And it was in that moment that he made a decision that would change everything. When we think of acts of kindness and courage, we usually associate them with trained individuals, like firefighters or doctors. But here the hidden truth is that greatness resides in those who, even without training, allow themselves to be guided by their hearts. The caretaker didn't hesitate. He entered the fire, braved the suffocating heat and dense smoke, and emerged carrying in his arms the life that seemed about to be lost. A scene that drew tears, screams, and sighs from those nearby. But what no one expected was that the story wouldn't end with that heroic act. On the contrary, it was just the beginning of something even more profound. Because it wasn't just about saving a child, but about revealing a message that would echo throughout the school community. The silence that followed that day wasn't one of forgetting, but of preparation. The school, the community, and even that child's family were about to give the janitor a response he never imagined. Now, I want to delve even deeper into this topic, because the response he received wasn't just a simple thank you. It was something that shook everyone's mind, something that showed that acts of courage can transform entire destinies. And this is where the story begins to reveal layers of impact, behind-the-scenes details, and revelations no one could have predicted. And perhaps, as you listen to this scene unfold in your mind, you felt that tightness in your chest that makes us think about how life can change in the blink of an eye. It's at this point that I want to open a space for conversation with you. If this topic resonates with you, leave your thoughts in the comments below, because every perspective and experience you share transforms this channel into something alive, made of stories and real people. Your participation here is what makes this space grow and reach more people with this kind of content that inspires, moves, and reminds us of what truly matters. So, if this message resonated with you, like this video, because this simple gesture shows that you want to continue following stories that touch us deeply and unite us as a community. And if you're not yet subscribed, take the opportunity to subscribe, because this isn't just a click. It's a sign that you want to walk along, discover more stories like this, and be part of a journey that goes far beyond the screen. I know it sometimes seems small, but every comment, every like, and every subscription paves the way for this message to reach those who need to hear it most. And now that you've connected with this beginning, I want to continue taking you even deeper into this story. He was an ordinary man, the kind who slips unnoticed through the corridors of life. The school janitor, with his calloused hands and time-worn uniform, was seen by many simply as the one who cleans, the one who tidies. But behind the paint-stained apron and weary posture lay a huge heart, full of stories and a hidden truth that few knew. How often in our daily lives do we get used to looking at people without really seeing them? How often do we miss the richness of those who seem invisible? This was his case, silent, discreet, almost imperceptible, but with a life that carried more impact than any title or social position could convey. He didn't seek recognition, nor did he expect applause. For him, work was more than sweeping the floor or fixing a light bulb. It was keeping alive the space where hundreds of children dreamed, learned, and grew. He knew that every detail he cared for, no matter how small, reflected on someone's future, and that, for him, was enough. His mindset was shaped by deep values, honesty, discipline, and, above all, compassion. Many saw him as just a caretaker, but he saw himself as part of each student's journey, a silent guardian. Behind the scenes of transforming lives, the impact of his presence went beyond what the eye could measure. He was the one who offered a word of encouragement when he saw a sad child in the playground, who kept a secret from a secret shared in the hallway, who found creative solutions to problems that others simply ignored. There was no spotlight on him, but his legacy was built every day with gestures of unexpected generosity. Perhaps this is life's greatest mystery, how seemingly small people can carry within them a gigantic power to change destinies. Now, I want to delve even deeper into this topic, because it's not just about a janitor in his simple uniform, but about how life teaches us not to underestimate anyone. This story shows how split-second decisions can reveal a person's true essence. And in this case, what he did in a moment of extreme tension transformed not only the fate of a child, but also the way an entire community viewed him. When we look at people like him, we discover hidden truths about the impact of small actions. What seemed routine concealed a strength of character that only reveals itself in the face of adversity. It's as if life tests what's hidden within us, waiting for the right moment to be revealed. And it's in this revelation that we understand the true value of humanity, empathy, and courage. If this part of the story resonates with you, comment below. This resonates with me. I'd love to see how far this message of transformation and courage reaches. That day, the school seemed to follow its usual rhythm, with children running through the hallways, teachers preparing materials, and the characteristic sound of recess filling the air. It was an environment that exuded normalcy, where everyone seemed busy with their own responsibilities. For many, nothing was out of place in that familiar routine. But in the midst of this scene, there was someone silently observing everything, ensuring that the small details maintained the harmonious functioning of the space. The janitor. He was there, as always, adjusting a creaky door, changing a dead light bulb, and picking up forgotten papers from the floor. To most, he was just part of the scenery, almost invisible. Yet, his presence was vital, even if few realized it. The school walls held stories of learning and challenges, but no one imagined that something extraordinary was about to happen that day. And it is precisely in these backstage areas where the unexpected arises that life's greatest revelations unfold. The janitor, with his calm demeanor and tireless dedication, moved around the courtyard without attracting attention. But behind that discreet expression lay a readiness, a mindset forged not only by work, but by life itself. Perhaps this was the most curious detail. He was always there, but would only be truly seen when the normalcy of this place was shattered by something beyond control. This mundane routine hid a hidden truth, a contrast between apparent normality and the intensity that life can bring in a matter of seconds. Children played carefree while teachers graded tests or chatted in the hallways. Everything seemed under control, but life has a habit of testing our mettle when we least expect it. And in that space, amidst children's laughter and the sound of recess bells, something was about to happen that would mark not only the janitor's life, but also that of all who witnessed his gesture. Now, I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because what's truly impressive is not just the peaceful atmosphere that precedes a crisis, but how an ordinary person can become a pillar when everything around them crumbles. It's in this contrast between the silence of routine and the noise of the emergency that true real-life heroes emerge. The janitor had neither a cape nor recognition, but he carried within him a heart willing to act, and this detail would forever change how he would be remembered. Comment below. I'm on this journey too, if you've ever noticed how behind the ordinary, the greatest stories of courage can be hidden. It all began so quickly that few realized what was actually happening. A strange smell of smoke permeated the hallways, at first subtle, almost unnoticed, as if it were just burning paper in some classroom. But within seconds, this harmless aroma turned into something suffocating, and the first flames began to spread silently through one of the classrooms at the back of the building. The children's noise, once cheerful and ordinary, was replaced by confused screams, hurried footsteps, and the echo of fear spreading from room to room. The fire was beginning to show its cruel face, revealing how normality can unravel in an instant. Panic gripped many. Teachers tried to organize the students, but smoke was already seeping into the hallways, making it difficult to see or even breathe. Some children cried in despair, unsure of what was happening, clinging to their classmates' hands or running in opposite directions, trying to find a way out. It was as if time had accelerated, and everyone was trapped in a nightmare where every second counted as a life. The fire advanced with relentless speed, consuming everything in its path, and the school, once a place of learning and safety, was transformed into a field of uncertainty and danger. In this chaotic scene, the janitor emerged as a figure standing out from the general panic. While many moved about haphazardly, he displayed a strange calm, almost impossible to maintain in the face of the unfolding tragedy. It was as if he had made an internal decision at that moment not to let this place become the scene of an even greater catastrophe. He already knew every corner of the school, every emergency exit, every narrow hallway, and this familiarity now became his weapon against the chaos. It's remarkable how, in extreme situations, some people's mindsets completely change. What for some becomes a cause for paralysis, for others is a call to action. And the janitor, with his firm stance, seemed to have found precisely that point of courage that transforms an ordinary person into a hero. The children looked around blankly, but he knew there was no time to hesitate. The emotional impact of that moment was like a spark that also ignited the hearts of those watching him, revealing that behind the simplicity of his uniform lay a hidden truth, that of someone ready to sacrifice himself for the good of others. Now I want to delve even deeper into this topic, because what unfolded from the fire was not just a potential tragedy, but a stage for revelations about humanity, choices, and courage. It's in these behind-the-scenes moments when life seems to slip through our fingers, that we discover who we truly are. Comment below. This makes sense to me if you also believe that the greatest heroes emerge in the most unexpected moments. Amidst the screams, the running, and the smoke. Already beginning to engulf the hallways, the janitor noticed something many missed in the heat of despair. As he helped some students down the stairs, his experienced gaze quickly scanned the classroom doors, as if making a final check. It was at that moment that he heard a muffled, almost suffocated sound coming from one of the rooms already enveloped in thick smoke. It was the frail cry of someone barely able to call for help. And it was in that detail that fate revealed itself. There was a child trapped inside. Most people had already rushed for the exit, seeking safety, which is natural in the face of tragedy. But instead of going with the flow, he stopped. His heart raced. His instincts screamed louder than any logical thought. He couldn't leave that child alone. It was as if time had slowed down just for him, and each second carried the weight of a decision that would change everything. Entering meant risking one's own life, but not entering meant condemning an innocent person. To the darkness of the smoke and the relentless advance of the flames, the hidden truth of these moments is that rarely is anyone prepared for them. There are no manuals to teach how to act, no formulas for courage. It's the mindset of those who see beyond themselves that makes the difference. The janitor knew his gesture could be costly, but the transformation that occurs within a person when they choose good is something that defies logic. He grabbed a piece of cloth, quickly wet it in the sink in a nearby room, and covered his face like a makeshift barrier against the suffocating smoke. Then he pushed the door with all his strength, feeling the almost unbearable heat on the other side. Inside the room, the scene was desperate. Desks were overturned, pieces of burnt material scattered across the floor, and the smoke was so thick that one could barely see a hand in front of them. And there, in the corner, huddled and wide-eyed with fear, was the child. Her gaze, filled with despair and hope, met his, and in that instant a silent connection was created that only those who have faced life and death can understand. With firm steps, even as his body burned from the heat, he approached and took the child in his arms. The little one clung to him with all his strength, as if he had found a safe haven in the midst of chaos. There was no time to think, only to act. He knew that every breath was precious, every movement could be the difference between surviving or not. Now, I want to delve even deeper into this topic, because this moment wasn't just about a physical rescue, but about the impact that courageous choices have on our journey as human beings. It's in the shadows of fear that revelations emerge that can transform the fate of everyone around us. Right there, I'm on this journey too, if you believe that it's these unexpected decisions that show the true greatness of the human heart. The moment of decision came like a flash of lightning, leaving no room for calculation, doubt, or elaborate plans. The caretaker, his heart pounding frantically, felt as if the entire world had stopped around him. It was as if all the voices, screams, and roar of the flames had receded into the background, leaving only that crucial moment when life demanded a choice. And he didn't hesitate. Without a second thought, he charged into the barrier of fire and smoke, surrendering himself body and soul to an act that transcended any instinct for self-preservation. The scene was brutal. The intense heat seared his skin, and each step felt like a plunge into a sea of flames. But there was something greater guiding his feet, the certainty that the child's life depended entirely on him. It's in these moments that we understand how mindset shapes courage. Many would call it madness, but deep down, it was the revelation of what so often remains hidden, the hidden truth that we all carry within us, the capacity for heroic action, even when we never consider ourselves heroes. His body screamed for retreat, his instincts screamed for him to run, but his mind, gripped by unwavering focus, held him steady. He walked through the smoke-filled corridor, the wet cloth clutched to his face, breathing heavily but refusing to let himself falter. The impact of his decisions went far beyond saving a life. It was a pure demonstration of what it means to put others before oneself, something we rarely see behind the scenes of the daily grind. And that's precisely why moments like these are etched not only in history, but in the collective memory of all who witnessed them. Inside the room, the child, now in his arms, represented not only a life at risk, but a symbol of hope amidst the chaos. It was a living reminder that even in the darkest situations, light can emerge from where one least expects it. This journey of seconds, which seemed to last an eternity, demonstrated the greatness of the human spirit in the face of adversity. And even though sweat ran down his face, smoke stung his eyes, and the weight of responsibility crushed his shoulders, the caretaker did not back down. The return was equally perilous. Every meter he covered felt like a battlefield, every breath a reminder of life's fragility. And yet, what sustained his strength was not the desire to get out of there unharmed, but the conviction that he needed to deliver that child to safety. The fire roared like a relentless enemy, but his heart beat with a promise of silent victory. Because in the end, courage is not the absence of fear, it is the decision to act despite it. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because this moment of decision wasn't just a reflex of instinct, but the reflection of a lifetime of choices, both large and small, that prepared this simple man to face the unimaginable. There's a weight behind these revelations that makes us reflect on how each of our actions, no matter how small, can shape us for moments that will change everything. Comment below, "This makes sense to me," if you believe that the choices we make today can pave the way for tomorrow's courage. The heroic rescue happened in fractions of seconds that felt like an eternity. The weight of the child in his arms was not just physical, but carried the symbolic weight of an entire life that could have been extinguished there in the suffocating silence of the smoke. The caretaker wrapped her tightly, feeling her body fragile, too light, and at the same time, more precious than anything he could carry. Every step he took in that corridor, engulfed in flames, was a fight against time, against fear, and against his own body, which was beginning to give way to the intense heat. But there was a greater force within him that sustained him, a kind of energy that arises when there is no other option but to move forward. The sounds mingled, the crackling of flames, the alarms going off, the screams of despair coming from outside. And amidst this chaos, the rapid, labored breathing of the child in his arms was the most powerful reminder of why he couldn't stop. This wasn't just an isolated act of courage, it was the purest expression of humanity, of the protective instinct that, when awakened, can move mountains. His mind was fixed on a single goal: to get through the school doors alive, delivering that little girl to a reunion with hope. His body cried out for rest, but the mindset he had built over a lifetime, built on silent discipline and so many invisible journeys, now revealed itself in its grandest form. It was as if all the hidden truths that shape the inner workings of a simple person came to light in that instant. Silent discipline, the habit of serving without expecting recognition, the daily decision to be present where no one is looking. All of this now transformed into the strength he needed to face the toughest test of his life. The thin air made it difficult to breathe, and sweat dripped down, mixed with the ash that clung to his skin, but he kept going. And as he ran with the child in his arms, there was no room for doubt or regret. The impact of that scene was so strong that, even for those watching from afar, it was impossible not to feel their hearts race. Many wept, Others held their breath, as if they were running alongside him. The journey wasn't just his. It belonged to all who believe that kindness can still change destinies. As he walked through the fiery corridor, each flame felt like an obstacle erected to test his faith, and each meter conquered felt like a victory against the impossible. And it was precisely then that we realized heroism lies not in grandiose, planned feats, but in decisions made in the heat of the moment, when life demands immediate responses and the heart speaks louder than reason. This race against time was the embodiment of what transformation means, from invisible man to admired hero, from silent routine to a revelation that would impact an entire community. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because the rescue scene doesn't end when the physical danger is overcome. There's an invisible dimension made up of emotional, mental, and spiritual consequences that reveal how much a single act can reverberate far beyond the moment it happens. Today's courage becomes inspiration for tomorrow, and the life of that child, saved amidst the flames, forever bears the mark that there's no such thing as a small gesture when it's born from a giant heart. Write down, "I'm on this journey too," if you feel that each act of courage leaves marks that go far beyond the moment in which they are performed. The impact on the students, teachers, and parents who witnessed the scene was something that could hardly be described in words alone. It was as if, for a few minutes, all the noise of life had been suspended, leaving only the rapid breathing of everyone and their eyes fixed on the figure emerging from the flames. The caretaker, his body scarred by smoke and his clothes singed, held the child tightly in his arms, and this simple gesture drew from the crowd a wave of tears, applause, and even spontaneous prayers that rose up like an invisible chorus. Many could not contain their emotion, and the looks exchanged between strangers said what words could not. They knew they had just witnessed something extraordinary. The children, still in shock, saw in the man who had previously swept the hallways with silent steps a true hero, someone who had risked everything for a life that wasn't even his direct responsibility. Some teachers wept with relief. Others raised their hands to the sky in gratitude, as if to engrave in their hearts that there is still living proof of courage in a world that so often seems cold. Parents, many of them desperate for news, ran toward the janitor and the child, some kneeling on the floor in tears of gratitude, others reaching out as if to touch the scene to reassure themselves it wasn't a dream. The atmosphere was charged with something beyond simple relief. There was a silent, almost spiritual revelation that acts of compassion can break the indifference that so often dominates everyday life. The mindset of everyone present began to be transformed by that gesture, because they weren't just watching someone escape the fire. They were witnessing the power of a decision made without calculation, without considering the consequences for oneself, only the impact it could have on others. And this moves us deeply, because it forces us to reflect on our own choices, on the behind-the-scenes aspects of our lives that perhaps are never observed, but that can change everything in an instant. The school environment, minutes before gripped by panic and chaos, now vibrated with a completely different energy. It was as if the ashes still in the air were visible reminders that life is fragile, but courage is powerful. With every tear that fell, every spontaneous applause, every murmured prayer, a new perspective was born. Many students, their eyes still wide, would likely carry this scene as a true life lesson, the kind not found in books or speeches, but engraved in the heart like a hidden truth revealed at just the right moment. Some parents commented to each other that they would never forget that day, not only for the fear they felt, but for the example they were given. Teachers, who so often tried to teach empathy and solidarity, knew that no lesson could have the power of that moment, and the janitor, still panting, seemed oblivious to the applause, focused only on ensuring the child was safe, demonstrating that his greatness lay precisely in the fact that he had never sought recognition. Now, I want to delve even deeper into this topic because the community's immediate reaction is just the first layer of this story. What comes after, the conversations, the reflections, the internal changes each person brings with them, is what truly reveals the impact of an act born of genuine compassion. Comment below, "This makes sense to me," if you also believe that there are moments that transform not only those who act, but everyone who has the chance to witness them. He could barely stay on his feet. His body betrayed every second of the fight against the flames. His labored breathing, his trembling muscles, the sweat mixed with the soot that coated his skin. There were red marks on his arms, signs of superficial burns, and his singed clothing seemed to scream the intensity of what had just happened. Yet when his eyes met those of the saved child, something changed. The weight of physical pain was replaced by an invisible strength. That unique feeling of mission accomplished that cannot be explained with words alone. It was as if all the exhaustion became light before the life that now breathed safely in his arms. The teachers tried to offer support, some bringing water, others looking for a place for him to rest. But the caretaker didn't seem focused on himself. He watched the child closely, making sure he was truly out of danger, as if the rest of the world were just noise. This contrast between the fragility of the body and the grandeur of the gesture became a scene forever etched in the memory of all who witnessed that day, because it wasn't just about an act of courage, but about a hidden truth rarely spoken of. Often, the greatest heroes don't wear shiny uniforms or hold prestigious positions. They are among us, discreet, but ready to transform destinies when life puts them to the test. As the sirens approached, bringing firefighters and paramedics, the atmosphere was one of reverent silence. There were no screams, no commotion, only teary eyes and an almost sacred respect that filled the schoolyard. And in that moment, he understood that his decision had gone far beyond rescuing a child. It was a lesson in impact, in how decisions made in seconds can echo throughout a community, leaving scars that span generations. His body, wounded and weary, bore witness to the battle he had fought, but his heart was at peace, having fulfilled a greater purpose. It's interesting how life creates behind-the-scenes moments that we can't always see right away. There, behind the smoke, was a narrative that spoke of transformation and choices that define character. Because anyone can be tested by fear, but few are those who allow compassion to speak louder than the instinct for self-preservation. And this caretaker, invisible to the eyes of so many, chose the path of surrender, setting aside his own safety to write a story that will never be forgotten. Now I want to delve even deeper into this topic, because what follows isn't just about the wounded body or the sense of mission accomplished. It's about the multiplier effect of this gesture, the revelations that emerge when a simple life impacts so many others in unexpected ways. It's about the journey that begins from this point, when the community finds itself transformed and new truths begin to surface. Comment there. That makes sense to me. What happened next took everyone by surprise. The scene of heroism was still fresh in the community's memory, but inside the school, silence took hold in a way no one expected. The janitor, who had risked his own life to save a child, didn't immediately receive words of gratitude or official recognition. On the contrary, it seemed the school administration chose not to comment much on the matter, almost as if wanting to let the episode fade into oblivion. This lack of response caused profound discomfort, both for those who experienced the moment and for those who heard about it. After all, how could such a grand gesture be met with such indifference? Teachers and parents whispered in the hallways, some outraged, others perplexed. The impact of this act of bravery was undeniable, but the lack of a clear expression of support created a heavy atmosphere, as if some hidden truth were hanging over everyone. The janitor, for his part, didn't seem to be seeking applause or the spotlight. He continued his routine, carrying the same simple and serene look as always, as if he understood that the mission to help doesn't depend on external recognition. Still, for those who watched closely, this humble attitude only heightened the feeling of injustice. This unexpected silence revealed something bigger: how society often deals with the behind-the-scenes aspects of courage. There are times when the most profound transformation comes not from applause, but from the discomfort that forces us to reflect on our own actions. Are we so accustomed to expecting the hero to be someone distant, depicted in newspapers or films, that we fail to recognize the true examples right alongside us? This mindset has a devastating impact because when acts of compassion are not celebrated, we risk diminishing their power to inspire others to action. While some expected an official tribute, what they saw was a man resuming his silent journey, cleaning hallways and attending to details that went unnoticed by most. But now there was a difference. Every glance that met his carried a greater weight, a mixture of respect and guilt. It was as if everyone knew they had witnessed a powerful revelation about what it means to be human, but they weren't sure how to react. The mystery surrounding this lack of recognition became almost as striking as the rescue itself. And perhaps, in a way, this school's choice revealed something even deeper: the difficulty institutions have in dealing with stories that expose vulnerabilities, fears, and responsibilities they would rather keep hidden. The janitor wasn't seeking rewards, but the reaction, or lack thereof, sparked a silent debate about values, priorities, and the essence of gratitude. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because what seemed like just silence could in fact hide decisions, behind-the-scenes details, and even unexpected revelations that would transform the way everyone saw that story. Right there, I'm on this journey too. What no one knew was that behind that silence that seemed cold and even unfair, there was a movement happening behind the scenes. While the janitor continued his routine, believing his heroic act would be forgotten, the school was rallying for something that completely escaped their expectations. The administration, teachers, and even some parents were organizing a way to give him a response that wasn't just words of thanks, but a gesture that demonstrated the true impact of what he had done. It was as if the silence were, in fact, the interval before a revelation capable of transforming not only his life, but that of the entire community. This choice to wait, to plan for something bigger, carried with it a powerful lesson about mindset and decision-making. Rather than offering immediate and fleeting recognition, they wanted the tribute to carry weight, to be unforgettable, to reveal the hidden truth behind the heroism, that he was not just an invisible employee, but an essential part of the school's history. And this secret preparation created an atmosphere of silent anticipation, almost like a suspense hanging in the air, because even without knowing it, everyone sensed something was coming. The janitor, humble as ever, was oblivious. He continued his journey with ease, still bearing the signs of physical exhaustion and injuries from the fire, but also a rare serenity, as if he had already found sufficient reward in his own conscience. But while he cleaned hallways, arranged chairs, and tended to the details that kept the school running, a group of people worked in parallel to write a new chapter in this story. It was a behind-the-scenes journey, a silent preparation for a collective impact that would change everything. Most impressively, this surprising revelation wouldn't just come as a tribute, but as a transformation in how everyone viewed not only the janitor, but also the value of gratitude. The school was about to demonstrate that it wasn't just about recognizing the heroic act, but also about teaching through it, a lesson that would forever be etched in the minds of children, parents, and the community. An act of courage would become a living example of compassion, humanity, and choices that shape destinies. And that's precisely where the story takes on new life, because the silence that once seemed empty now revealed itself as the harbinger of something greater, of a response that carried not only emotion but real impact. And this turning point makes us reflect: how many times in life, when we think we've been forgotten, are we actually just living in the interim before a surprise that will completely change the course of our journey? Now, I want to delve even deeper into this topic, because what was about to happen would show not just the recognition of an isolated act, but the revelation of how true kindness can transform entire communities and redefine what it means to be a hero. Comment there. That makes sense to me. The most impressive thing about this story is realizing how a single gesture was able to penetrate walls and resonate far beyond the scene of the fire. When the students returned home that night, they carried not only the fear of the flames or the memory of the chaos, but also a new understanding of courage and what it truly means to give of oneself to others. Many of them, even as children, asked their parents why. Someone would risk their life for someone outside their family, and these intimate conversations in silent living rooms and kitchens became lessons no textbook could teach. The parents, in turn, began to see the janitor differently. This man, who so often went unnoticed while sweeping the hallways or fixing something no one noticed, was now seen as a living example of sacrifice and humility. And this renewed perspective awakened a hidden truth. How often do we take for granted those who silently sustain our daily lives? How often do we forget that the greatest heroes don't wear shiny uniforms, but are among us, living discreet, purposeful journeys? In the community, the impact was inevitable. Small groups began sharing the story, not as an isolated incident, but as a metaphor for life. Churches, associations, and even conversations at the local market revolved around the same theme: how the mindset of a single man could spark so much hope amidst fear. This collective impact demonstrated that when an act of bravery occurs, it multiplies in reflections, decisions, and transformations. It was as if each person who heard about the rescue was invited to look within themselves and ask, "And I? What would I do if I were in his place?" The curious thing is that this reflection wasn't limited to the emotional realm. Many parents reported changes in their children's behavior as they began practicing small acts of generosity at home, inspired by the story. Teachers noticed. Students were more attentive and respectful, as if they had understood that school is not just a space for technical learning, but also a place where life teaches through real-life examples. This wave of transformation was proof that sometimes a grand speech isn't necessary to raise awareness. A genuine action that speaks louder than 1,000 words is enough. And here comes a powerful revelation. Collective impact doesn't happen just because something is great, but because it truly touches. In people's hearts, this episode made many realize that greatness lies not in being publicly recognized, but in acting courageously when no one expects anything of you. And this message resonated deeply because it reminds us that sacrifice, even in silence, can shine a light where before there was only shadow. Now I want to delve even deeper into this topic, because what came after this collective inspiration showed that the echo of an act of kindness doesn't stop at the emotion of the moment, but can transform entire structures, forever changing the way a community views its own values. Right there. I'm on this journey too. It's curious to see how certain situations, even those born amidst chaos, become turning points no one could have foreseen. The caretaker's act was not only a physical rescue, but also the beginning of a new narrative, both for the child who nearly lost his life and for him who rediscovered a deeper purpose. That moment, marked by smoke, the heat of the flames, and the race against time, became a silent revelation that life can always offer a second chance, even if it comes wrapped in pain and sacrifice. For the child, that experience will remain engraved not only as the moment someone rescued them, but as proof that even seemingly invisible people carry immeasurable value. This emotional impact doesn't fade with time, as it grows with them, shaping their mindset, their way of seeing the world, and their future decisions. It's a reminder that good can emerge from where least expected, and that compassion is a force capable of reshaping destinies. This intimate transformation, born of vulnerability, is one of the hidden truths life offers us. The most fragile moments can also be the most powerful. For the janitor, that act of bravery was like breaking boundaries. Until then, he was just a silent employee, someone who cleaned hallways without his name being remembered, someone who rarely received a look of recognition. But as he carried that child in his arms, he also carried with him a new sense of mission. It wasn't just the physical weight of the rescue, but the emotional impact it would have on him. For the first time in a long time, he felt that his life had a significance that went beyond his daily tasks. It was as if fate had placed before him an opportunity to prove to himself that every human being is capable of changing the story of another. This awakening brought forth profound reflections. How many times have you felt invisible, thinking that nothing you do truly matters? And suddenly, something happens that proves otherwise, revealing that even the behind-the-scenes aspects play a fundamental role in life's greater journey. The janitor understood that his trajectory, until then marked by simplicity, hid a greatness that only revealed itself because he made a split-second decision. And this revelation wasn't just personal, it resonated with the community, his co-workers, his students, and his parents, who began to see him in a new light. The second chance, in this case, wasn't just for the surviving child, but also for him, who discovered a new identity, a new value, a new purpose. He realized that his future wasn't limited to his current role, but open to possibilities he'd never imagined. That's how life works. When we least expect it, it confronts us with choices that test our courage. And if we're willing to act, we can emerge transformed, ready to embark on a completely different journey. Now, I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because what happened after this rescue showed that the consequences of an act of courage go far beyond the moment it occurs. They continue to reverberate, opening paths that no one could have foreseen. Comment there. That makes sense to me. It's remarkable how life's greatest lessons aren't accompanied by applause or spotlights, but by gestures that often go unnoticed at the time they happen. This story of the janitor shows us that true greatness isn't measured by positions, titles, or public recognition, but by the willingness to act with courage and kindness when no one expects it of us. The universal lesson that emerges from this episode is clear. The world isn't transformed solely by eloquent speeches or grandiose decisions, but by the quiet actions that reveal a heart willing to give. If we reflect on this, we'll realize how the collective mindset tends to value external achievements, while the hidden truth of life is that the essence of a human being is revealed in the impact they have on others at critical moments. How many times have we rushed past people who could be touched by a word, a look, or even a simple gesture of attention? This caretaker's journey reminds us that every opportunity to do good, no matter how small, is a chance to write a story that will remain etched not only in people's memories, but also in their souls. And the most curious thing is how these acts of silent generosity create ripples that spread far beyond the moment they are performed. That rescue wasn't just the rescue of a child, it was the awakening of an entire community to the impact of compassion. It was a powerful reminder that behind the routine and behind the scenes of life, there are revelations capable of transforming the way we see each other. When a single individual decides to put themselves at risk for another, they demonstrate that human value transcends any logic of reward or convenience. This truth, when absorbed, provokes an internal transformation that challenges us to change our own mindset. It leads us to reflect on the decisions we make every day. Do we choose to focus solely on our own needs, or do we allow ourselves to see beyond, seeking opportunities to be instruments of good in someone else's life? This is the point at which everyday life and eternity meet, because a seemingly small gesture can have consequences that echo for generations. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because if greatness isn't in the applause, we need to better understand where it truly resides and how we can recognize it in our own stories. Right there. I'm on this journey too. There are stories that reach us like a breath of hope amidst the noise of the world, reminding us that humanity is still capable of surprising itself with gestures that ask for nothing in return. This episode of The Janitor is more than a narrative of courage. It's an invitation to look beyond what seems ordinary and see that often true heroes don't wear capes, hold prestigious positions, or receive immediate recognition. They live among us, discreetly, and when life presents them with a decisive moment, they choose to act out of compassion. And perhaps it's precisely this simplicity that makes it all the more powerful. Because in a world where so many decisions are made with profit, applause, or personal gain in mind, someone who acts for the good of another without considering the consequences reveals a hidden truth we all need to remember. The value of human life is always greater than anything else. The impact of this action wasn't limited to the extinguished fire or the saved child, but echoed as a revelation about the power that exists in genuine kindness. Hearing and reflecting on this, it's impossible not to think about the choices we make daily. How many times do we fail to reach out because we believe it won't make a difference? How many times do we wait for someone else to do what was right in front of us? This story challenges us to rethink our mindset, to see the transformation that small actions can generate, and to understand that there is no journey more meaningful than the one in which we decide to be part of the change. So if this story touched you, leave a comment. Heroes still exist. This isn't just a phrase, it's a way of declaring that you believe in the power of generosity and that you want to see more of this spirit alive in the world. And of course, by liking and subscribing, you become part of this community that grows precisely to spread messages that renew hope. Now I want to delve even deeper into this topic because understanding the role of these anonymous heroes helps us realize how even the quietest actions can change entire destinies. After everything we've seen here, I think one thing is clear. Stories like this aren't just tales of courage. They're living reminders that there's still reason to believe in kindness and human strength. If you've made it this far, it's because this message touched you in some way, and I'd like to know that. Leave the phrase, "I'm with you until the end," in the comments, just to show that you've walked with me to this point in the journey. Your comment, like, and subscription make a huge difference, not only in keeping this channel growing, but also in providing more people with access to stories that transform and renew hope. It's like spreading small sparks of light amid the daily lives of so many people who need a breath of inspiration. And before you go, there's a video right here that perfectly complements what we talked about today. Click and stay with me there, because I'm sure you'll be moved and reflect even more with the next story.